We're going to take a break from the political news now because let me show you the outside of Buckingham Palace, where the flag is lowered as it's been announced that the Duchess of Kent, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth and wife of the Duke of Kent,
Prince Harry is reportedly incensed after his condolence email to the Duke of Kent, sent following the sad passing of the Duchess of Kent, was allegedly ignored. The announcement of the Duchess's death sent shockwaves through the British public, yet sources close to the palace claim that Harry's attempt to express sympathy went unanswered. Insiders say he is visibly frustrated, perceiving the lack of acknowledgement as a personal snub. This incident is the latest in a string of controversies, highlighting Harry's increasingly tense relationship with senior royals. It has reignited questions about the Duke of Sussex's judgment, his role within the monarchy, and his public image. For decades, the royal family has walked a fine line between public duty and private grief, adhering to strict protocols for condolence messages, measured, discreet, and carefully managed. Harry, however, has long demonstrated a penchant for turning private matters into public spectacles. According to sources, he had expected a personal acknowledgement, and the absence of one has only amplified his frustration with the institution he left behind. Royal commentators are already weighing in, noting that Harry's reaction may be unsurprising given his history of clashes with senior family members since stepping back from royal duties. Over the years, the Duke of Sussex has been at the center of multiple controversies, from public criticisms of the monarchy to high-profile media appearances where he openly voiced grievances about his family. This latest episode, however, may signal a widening rift, even with royals previously regarded as more neutral or approachable. Insiders note that the Duke of Kent is known for his reserved nature, particularly when it comes to personal correspondence. In this context, silence may simply reflect his character, but for Harry, it has only deepened a sense of estrangement from the family he once called home. While the lack of response may not have been intended as a personal affront, Harry, already highly sensitive to perceived slights, reportedly saw it as a deliberate dismissal of his gesture. The gap between expectation and reality has left the Duke of Sussex feeling livid and disrespected, reigniting long-standing questions about his place within the royal framework. Public reaction has been swift and polarized. Some sympathize with Harry, suggesting it's natural he would wish to reach out during a time of mourning. Others argue that his response reinforces a long-standing narrative of entitlement and a desire for recognition that has shadowed him for years. Royal analysts warn that such reactions could further erode his credibility, portraying him as someone unable to navigate the subtle protocols of monarchy while simultaneously craving media attention. Complicating matters, this incident is far from isolated. It follows recent feuds, high-profile disputes over royal titles, public disagreements with senior royals, and multiple media interviews where grievances were aired openly. Observers increasingly see this pattern of public outrage over perceived slights as either a deliberate or subconscious strategy to maintain media visibility for Harry and Meghan. Inside the palace, the atmosphere is reportedly tense. Courtiers and senior staff are said to be bewildered, questioning why a private gesture of condolence would escalate into a public spectacle. One insider remarked that Harry's difficulty in separating private communication from public narrative has created unnecessary friction, even among royals who might otherwise have extended sympathy during this sensitive period. Meanwhile, the media has pounced on the story. Headlines describe Harry as livid, outraged, and unable to contain himself. Coverage of this type fuels public fascination and reinforces the image of a royal at odds with his family, a recurring theme that dominates news cycles regardless of intent or protocol. Even royal historians have weighed in. They note that the Duke of Kent, as a senior family member, has a long tradition of reserved and measured communication, particularly during delicate times. In contrast, Harry has consistently favored emotionally charged public statements, a stark clash with the understated approach expected within the monarchy. The result is a perfect storm: perceived disrespect, personal offense, and media spectacle. As the dust begins to settle, one question looms large. Is this another isolated incident, or does it reveal a deeper fracture within the royal family? Observers argue that Harry's continued reliance on public outrage to assert his presence is increasingly isolating him from the very institution he once sought to serve. As the world watches, the silence from the Duke of Kent may speak louder than any words, highlighting a widening gulf between tradition and celebrity in the modern monarchy. The story, however, does not end with the Duke of Kent's quietude. Sources say that Harry, already on edge from repeated family disputes, immediately escalated the matter privately, sending follow-up messages that went unanswered. Royal insiders describe the mood as tense, almost combustible, with staffers scrambling to manage what could easily become another public spectacle. For a man who once relied on royal tradition and protocol, Harry now finds himself in near constant conflict with the very structure he left behind. Each perceived snub seems to compound his frustration, intensifying the media frenzy. Headlines scream about Harry's fury, palace snub sparks outrage, and Duke can't handle silence. Social media is divided. Some sympathize with Harry, noting that grieving royals often act privately and that the Duke of Kent may simply have been observing long-standing protocol. Others argue that Harry's habit of turning private matters public has made him his own worst enemy. Every unreturned email, every ignored message is now magnified into a major scandal, a far cry from the discreet conduct he once championed. Royal commentators point out that this latest incident follows a long line of controversies in which Harry has struggled to balance personal grievances with public perception, from explosive interviews to court battles over titles and family disputes. The result is a portrait of a royal caught between two worlds, the solemn traditions of monarchy and the relentless spotlight of celebrity. In this delicate balance, silence is no longer golden, it is combustible. And for Harry, every perceived slight threatens not only his personal peace, but also the fragile relationship he maintains with the family he once called home. Every move by Prince Harry is scrutinized through this lens. The Duke of Kent's silence is more than a single perceived affront. It has become a symbolic reminder of Harry's detachment from the royal system and how his attempts to assert himself often collide with centuries of tradition. Inside Buckingham Palace, staff reportedly described the situation as chaotic. Courtiers, long accustomed to Harry's emotional intensity, worried the matter could spiral into a public confrontation or a social media storm. He doesn't just want acknowledgement, one insider revealed. He wants validation, and when it doesn't come, he reacts. For a family that values composure, discretion, and continuity, Harry's response is both frustrating and exhausting. Public opinion has only intensified. Royal enthusiasts who support Harry applaud his attempt to express grief and maintain family connections. Critics, however, are harsh. They argue that his public fixation on minor slights makes him appear self-centered and entitled. Some commentators suggest that Harry's behavior illustrates a broader disconnect, a man once prepared for duty now seemingly consumed by image, recognition, and personal grievances. Historians note that the Duke of Kent has long been respected for his quiet diplomacy and discretion during sensitive events. Unlike Harry, he understands the value of restraint and the power of silence. By refusing to respond to Harry's email, he is not necessarily rejecting the gesture. Rather, he is adhering to a tradition that separates personal sentiment from public action. For Harry, accustomed to immediate acknowledgement and media coverage, this silence feels like a personal rejection, its impact amplified by years of accumulated frustration. The situation has reverberated across social media, sparking intense debates. Fans and critics dissect Harry's reaction, comparing it to previous incidents in which minor slights became headline news. The narrative being constructed paints him as volatile and hypersensitive, struggling to navigate royal decorum while still expecting the privileges of acknowledgement. Memes, commentaries, and viral videos have turned what should have been private correspondence into a global spectacle. Legal analysts and royal watchers suggest this incident could have long-term repercussions. Even a seemingly minor snub, when amplified by the media, can erode credibility and influence public perception. For Harry, who continues to navigate life as both a public figure and a private father, these moments highlight the impossible balancing act he faces, reconciling his need for recognition with the rigid hierarchy and traditions of the royal family. Observers also note Meghan Markle's indirect influence. Sources suggest that Harry's heightened sensitivity to perceived slights is fueled, in part, by ongoing public scrutiny of both him and Meghan. Every silence, every unanswered message is magnified by past conflicts, from media battles to legal disputes, reinforcing a sense of being attacked or isolated within the institution he once served. As the drama continues, insiders warn that the story is far from over. Harry's repeated attempts to assert himself publicly, coupled with the Duke of Kent's steadfast reserve, have created a volatile mix of perception, emotion, and media frenzy. Analysts predict that unless Harry reconciles his personal expectations with royal protocol, incidents like this will continue to dominate headlines, further straining relationships and fueling public fascination with the ongoing royal saga. In conclusion, the Duke of Kent's silence is not merely a snub. It reflects centuries-old royal tradition, reminds Harry of boundaries he has struggled to respect, and acts as a catalyst for a media storm likely to follow him for months. Whether Harry perceives it as disrespect or as a lesson in restraint, one truth is clear: the tension between modern celebrity and traditional royalty has never been more apparent. And the world continues to watch, with rapt attention, every reaction, every email, and every perceived slight.